Welcome to Lama Surya Das's Awakening Now podcast. We are very pleased to share with you Lama's unique illumination of the awakened awareness teachings. If you are interested in supporting Lama Surya Das's podcast, please go to BeHereNow.com/Suryadas.
And I bow to the Buddha, the light, the divine in your seat, especially you, Kelly. I have a guest here, Kelly Rego, right in front of me, and my creative protege, and the project manager of Ram Dass's Be Here Now network, and many other good works, and also a filmmaker and writer, creator in her own right. So welcome to my Awakening Now podcast on the Be Here Now network. This is Lama Surya Das, the American Lama, and it's a beautiful day, as always. It's to be alive. What a gift, what a miracle. And perhaps now we're starting a deeper, bigger dive, as this is Awakening Now 2.0 series, because Kelly Rego was my first collaborator or guest, if you want to talk old-fashioned. We dialogued on my very first podcast that I ever did for the Be Here Now network some years ago.
Episode 25.
Episode 25. Exactly. Kelly knows.
Yeah.
And so now I have her on again, having gone through all the Illuminati and the gray-haired elders and the people whose eyes, are like artificial intelligence, four-dimensional AI processors, all of my friends and spiritual luminaries. And now we have our youthful representative here, Kelly Rego from Providence, Rhode Island. Actually, she's in Maui and lives in Maui now. Maui,
yes.
And works for Ram Dass full-time, and we really appreciate that. How are you today, my dear
I'm
Kelly?
doing great. It's a bit of a rainy day here, but nice and cozy. So
I'm sure.
Happy to talk to you.
It's a rainy day in paradise. There's probably rainbows, and it's good for all the growing things in that beautiful healing island of Maui.
That's for certain. Yes.
I'm here in the Pilgrim State, or as some call it, the Puritan State of Massachusetts. So
I know
we
it well.
alternate between winter and summer here in spring. Snow on the baseball fields of the Red Sox, etc. But it's a nice day today, and the turtles and ducks are out in the pond out there. I can see them.
Oh, good.
And it's a beautiful day. And Kelly, I've been wondering, since we've been doing this a few years, and perhaps you have fielded some questions, or you want me to talk about some particular thing that the, let's say, younger generations are into, or I hate to say this, what's trending now in the spiritual world, like mindfulness, or what, what's next? What's the future of this ancient, timeless spiritual transformation practices, like my own lineage of Dzogchen, the natural great perfection, or Ram Dass's bhakti and devotional tradition of Maharaj Neem Karoli Baba, and so on. Of course, I'm in the Dzogchen lineage, and I had a deep dive in my 20s, 30s, and 40s over in Asia. And my gurus, even if they're gone from this world, they're still with me and in me and in us and all around. That's the meaning of lineage. And the invisible array, all those who've gone before, just like our ancestors.
Mm-hmm.
And we have their genes, and we have a lot of that they've done for us, and also connected to those in the future that we haven't even seen yet, but we can easily foresee. So any thoughts about that? Like everything is about the now, and Instagram, and snap your fingers chat, and so on. And how does that relate to timeless lineage and tuning into the deathless and timeless, primordial some call it God or the source or the higher power, inner power.
Hmm.
What are people looking for a need today, and how can we serve this need going forward? Any thoughts or questions even?
Well, I guess what I was hoping to get a little clarity on is my interpretation of Dzogchen, or one of the major teachings, is as it is.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess embracing the great perfection as it is. And I've noticed from sitting in on different retreats, and also me personally, is that people have a really tough time with accepting the spectrum of what's going on in the world right now as the great perfection.
That's why it's great. It's beyond good and bad.
Great.
Because there sure is plenty of shit. Exactly. Great. I love you too. Warts and all. That's the meaning of great perfection, not perfection versus imperfection.
Great. Okay.
So there's a deep acceptance in this, and embracing life in all of its phantasmagoric and cockamamie mishigas.
So when you say great perfection, then that's a useful term to take you outside of the duality, or getting pinned against.
Yes.
One
in Sanskrit, the word is maha. So maha means like the next level, like maha. Like maha. Lord Shiva is a maha.
Right.
Not just one of the Hindu gods, but like the Lord of gods, the God of gods. So that maha mudra or maha ati in Sanskrit is Dzogchen. So it's the great natural great perfection, the innate great perfection, beyond duality like liking and disliking, which is so subjective and so personal. This is transpersonal, not impersonal, transpersonal, where everything is with the highest, whatever you can imagine, the deepest, the truest, the divinest, is it transcendent, yet it's imminent in everything, including the shadow side. As we recognize, even shadows are nothing but light phenomena. So we can accept, this takes work and practice, and sadhana means like practice or reenactment, the path of the siddhas, the saints. Mm-hmm. We can become like that and be like that and realize that part of ourself that is uncorrupted and uncorruptible. Like in psychology, Western psychology calls the inner child. It doesn't mean childish, it's childlike. It's uncorruptible. That fun part of you that plays with baby, sits on the floor, or plays with dog or cat. So that's the great perfection, even though we live in a very fractious and fractured and unjust, let's say, era. I mean, I feel like a husband whose wife has been unfaithful as far as the country and the government right now. And it reminds me of the 60s. It's so hard to trust anything comes from outside there, from the government or from the news media or the politicians, or the whether it's called the fake news or alternative facts, and everything is so subjective anyway, regardless, century after century. And now we have this era of the death of expertise and the lack of accountability, where even political leaders can just lie and get away with it, and everybody agrees it's a lie or an exaggeration, but it doesn't matter. So I'm feeling a little cheated on, but still in the great perfection, in the bigger commitment to true relationship, that can be given too. That's what the great love is, beyond liking and disliking your mate or your parent or your sibling or the earth. Or your body, people have issues with their body image or whatever. And yet you can come to love and accept yourself and your body and warts and all. And that's the work. That's the big love beyond like and dislike. That's the big Buddha beyond Buddhism. That's the great natural great perfection. Right. That's the big Maharaji, not a male person who left this world in 1973 in India, and was a saint, but the big Maharaji, that is like the higher power and power source that we will have access to or are part of. It's part of us. So we could say it's all his will. If you're a theist, there's a place in me that can surrender to that because I'm not in control of all that's going on in the world. And then there's another place in me that wants to try to improve things.
Right.
Like we tried in the 60s and 70s, and it was a very socially active era, and ever since then. And it's coming around again with this pendulum swing.
Yeah.
So innate great perfection is beyond good and bad. Like today's a rainy day. Does that mean, in Maui, you said, does that mean it's a bad day? I mean, it's a good day for the flowers and the farmers.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a bad day for the tourists who want to go to the beach and are only there for, a weekend.
Right. And have
so it's
traveled.
So subjective. Yeah, I've traveled a long way to get a Hawaiian beach day.
Yeah.
So everything's so subjective. So that relates to embracing everything. Like the great Thich Nhat Hanh, the Buddhist activist and saint and wise monk of Vietnam, says, the world is full of suffering. We need to embrace the suffering. It doesn't mean we wish it on anybody, but it is what it is. As you said, that's what Dzogchen is about, reality. We can embrace it. We don't have to try to increase the suffering. We can, in fact, try to alleviate it, but still not run away from it. And that's what big love is. Acceptance and love.
And forgiveness.
Yes. And all those virtues. Mercy and forgiveness and empathy and feeling what the other feels, even when they vociferously disagree with us. I changed that from violent. When they vociferously disagree with us. Like at the family Christmas or Thanksgiving table when politics or religion might come up. But you still love them and you go every year.
Yeah.
Because they're your tribe. It's your clan. And love is bigger than like and dislike. And that's hard to live in life where we have so many irritations and so many preferences. That's why the ancient Zen master of China called the third ancestor in his Trust in the Heart Sutra, which is a 3 or 4 page poem in the Trust in the Heart Sutra. The third ancestor of China says, the way is not difficult for those who have few preferences.
Totally.
So that doesn't mean everybody has to order vanilla ice cream at the ice cream shop. You can, pick whatever you want from the 50 flavors, but it just means we don't have a tantrum if our flavor isn't available that day.
Right.
The way is not difficult for those who have few preferences. So that's the big natural perfection or radical acceptance and love, unconditional love that we're aiming for. And I have found that it's actually workable. We have that in us. And I hope that others find or resonate with that too. As you do. I see your guru, Neem Karoli Baba, behind you, and it makes me happy. He gave me my name, and he was always wrapped in that plaid blanket, and it's become a metaphor for all of us of being under or wrapped in his blanket, even though he breathed his last, as far as we know, in 1973.
It's funny to feel that, even though I never met him.
So that's about lineage, and that's how we can do it today, wherever we are in the modern world, in the Western world, or like you in your social media and creative high-tech kind of world. You can still feel embraced by that blanket, under the blanket, in the tent, in the lineage, like you meet him in the satsang in our beloved community, as he said. As Jesus said also, by the way.
I would agree, but it started digitally before I got to meet those people in person. And that's, I guess, what I love about doing what I do and having come from such a strong media background. It was actually following Ram Dass on Facebook and listening to the podcast is how I got to even come close to meeting a satsang. And then from there, I just started collecting pictures of Maharaji because I started reading Miracle of Love. because of someone posting the stories. And then I just kept saving the pictures. I thought he was a really adorable grandpa. And you're like, I don't know why I like this guy so much.
He is, I know.
And then now it's like, I just see him so much as, when I say Maharaji, I just always feel like it's the universe in drag, or like Ram Dass says, God in drag. It's just the costume
it's
that
a universal
the
grandparent who
universe.
always loves you. You know, you don't have conflict with, like you may have with your parents who try to discipline you, you know.
Yeah, and it's definitely a feeling. Recently, I had friends come visit me on Maui, and we got to go to Ram Dass's house for kirtan, and they are not into this scene. And
Oh, you were telling me they were your old friends from the Peace Corps or something?
Yeah. And so way
so what happened?
before they, there's no context. I just, I played them kirtan on the ride over, just so then they would have an idea of the music. And from there, didn't really say much because, you weren't talking, we were chanting along. And then afterwards, I asked them, like, what was your favorite part of visiting Maui? They're like, going to Ram Dass's house. They're like, it just felt so good. It just felt so warm. You just felt so loved there. And so it's something that I was explaining to them, that bhakti yoga is probably one of the coziest paths of union with God. It really warms.
It's very welcoming
and
warm.
Yeah.
Yes, that's Maharaji's love, and that's what he embodied and modeled for all of us. So it's interesting to me as a, kind of a Luddite, like Fred Flintstone here, that you first met Maharaji virtually through the podcasts.
Yes. Yeah.
And, those of us who were named by him or quote, knew him, meaning we were with him in person in India in the 70s while he was still alive, early 70s, then people think, that some people think that to have met him in person is special, and it's hard to meet him now. But I kind of think the opposite. Not entirely the opposite. I know what they mean. But for example, one of my girlfriends who in the satsang, Lakshmi, she never met Maharaji in person. We were going to meet him, going to India on my second trip when he left this world in 1973. Ooh. And so Lakshmi was like brokenhearted, but we went to the ashram anyway. It was right after the cremation, and she, has become like one of his greatest. She's gone now, but she became one of his greatest devotees and was always painting Hanuman, and her big flying Hanuman was on the stage on the wall behind Ram Dass and Krishna Das and Jai Gopal and people for years. And she was more devoted to Maharaji than I was, and she only met him in the spirit, like you see.
Yeah.
So we didn't have podcasts then, but she met him in the spirit through the pictures and the love of the satsang and kirtan and that warm, welcoming, inclusive blanket of acceptance and love and urging to, conscious evolution and love everyone, not just those that you like or who stroke your ego and who are nice to you, but widening the concentric circles of our loving heart.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that comes through from Ram Dass that is easy for me to accept is he talks to his guru in his imagination, and you have like having that trust in my imagination mixed with the faith is, sometimes my meditation involves like cuddling up and talking to Maharaji, like I'm in the blanket, he's in the blanket, and that's for me my meditation, and he's hanging. I get to hang out with him too, So
yes. So I hope you do that and you trust in. I know you trust in that, but I'm just saying this is something we can learn to experiment with and trust in, and see if our intuition doesn't agree. Not that we're just pretending, because like Buddha's not pretending, Maharaji's not pretending.
No,
so we don't have to pretend either. I mean, we can fake it till we make it. That's what practice is, sort of. But if after a while, if it's not authentic, you try something else.
Yeah.
Like any relationship. It's funny you mentioned that, because even yesterday, my hip is hurting, so I'm gonna have to do something for hip replacement. So I'm always lying down at night on the other side,
Mm-hmm.
which I'm not used to go to sleep. And, you know, we're such creatures of habit, big and small. It's funny because we talk about freedom and we work on ourselves and all, and to get out of our ruts and to recondition and decondition in positive and significant, valuable ways. But it's still hard to just like sleep on the other side or any small change, you know. So anyway, but what I was thinking was relevant to what you were saying, Kelly. I was imagining putting my head in my guru's lap, just like we are taught in Tibetan Buddhist lineage. We put our head in Tara's lap, which is nice because she's the female Buddha archetype, not a historical figure. But, you know, we could also do it in our teacher's lap, or really just like you could do it in our parents' lap, if you imagine, or grandparents, whatever makes you feel good when you're sick. And it may seem like imagination, but since everything almost, you could say, takes place in your mind anyway, like if I see my parents in a dream, it's just like seeing them, even though they're dead now.
Right.
I have the same feelings. So it works. I like putting my head in her lap last night, Tara. And that's kind of, and we call it Guru Yoga in Tibetan, the union of the Guru and the highest with the supposedly separate individual. So that's how you approach the oneness. So you go through the portal of devotion into the oneness. Just like you instinctively are doing, whatever you said, cuddling up in Maharaji's arms, blanket.
Oh no, we're
lap.
having sleepovers.
He's like a grandpa.
It's like sleepover talk. It's like we're giggling and like hanging
like
out, staying up late.
Yeah. Staying up late, rocking with the Guru. I like it.
Oh yeah, we
could write a song about this.
Just singing
Rocking
Sri Ram Jai Ram.
Rocking with Maharaji. Staying up late in the now. It's really
fun
late
rascal.
in the now. Well, he always used to call us rascals, you know, Badmash. We like the little rascals. It was very, very appropriate. And still are in a way because of that inner child thing. Like he is like the grandfather spiritually, or father, or mother, parent, elder to us. And when we don't know what to do, sometimes it's good to just, you know, you don't know what to pray for, or ask for, or decide on, or choose to do, or analyze with a checklist, checks, you know, pluses and minuses, or however you decide things, with a decision tree or whatever, rationally. I just put my hands together in prayer and bow my head and listen, and say, like, I don't know. And whatever form your inner power has, you know, Maharaji or your guru or Buddha or the source, I feel like the less I'm present, the more room there is for that to speak, or to be heard, and for direction to come and connect to higher purpose, higher, you know, deeper, truer direction, true north. Speaking of conscious evolution, not ordinary direction, true north. And it's like an inner gyroscope that you can really connect to. And I recommend that to people all the time, because there's many different ways to pray or kneel or practice spiritual practices and things to do or ask for or let go of. But this not knowing and the surrendering is a huge part of it. And putting our head in the embrace of the Guru is fantastic. If we could put our whole life in that service, it would be fantastic. Not irresponsible, it would be super maha responsible. I mean, we'd be like responsible for the whole earth and all the people, all the beings, like our body, and all this energy and all the consciousness, like our own soul or mind. Then we would take care of it like ourselves. We'd take much better care of it. So when you stay up late with Maharaji, what do you girls do together? I mean, you and Maharaji.
It's definitely not all the time.
Yeah, I know.
It's when it is.
I mean, do you sing kirtan, or do you cry, or you just like cuddle in?
It's, I'm just like trying to fall asleep, and it's dealing with like some anxieties of what's to come for the next day, or getting like, oh, how am I going to get through this? And just kind of relaxing into, even if like, I don't know, sometimes the words come back. It's not like it's coming out of his mouth, but it's just, letting the thoughts flow in and giving a chance to listen and bow. And
Right.
I would say the surrender game is pretty fruitful if you can really get on board, and having Maharaji as like the placeholder, it helps step into that trust and faith, I have found. Yeah.
Well, that's like our Dzogchen practice. That's what we're saying in Guru Yoga about surrendering to that, which is the as it is. Leave it as it is. Be as is. Let it be as is. Not just let go, but let things come and go. Let be as is. That pretty well sums up the Dzogchen meditation practice. But then there's also how we bring that into the world, in our daily life, where you have whatever you have, a boss or deadlines, or what do you say, work, 3 people's worth of work piled on you,
Yeah.
etc. So that's where the bigger, the rubber meets the road on the spiritual path, where you have to really dig deep to, can you surrender into that as, like another limb of Maharaji's that's under his blanket, not just his bosom or his lap, but, some other part of the divine also to surrender into, and to be one with, and do your best, and let go, and let it flow, and keep doing your best and letting go, and trust that that's the best you can do.
Yeah, I can feel I've been being, lately in the career sense, I feel him nudging me to my growth edge, I'm feeling like him is like right behind me.
He is.
Which is good.
He's haunting us. Yeah.
But the only Dzogchen meditation, or I guess one of the only times I've been to one of your retreats, you did like an open eye, big sky meditation. I've always liked that as part of the Dzogchen lineage, because I think that is helpful to bring it into your day-to-day life when you're not closing your eyes and separating, and that the meditative state, or that as it is, can be cultivated when you're looking at the sky, and hopefully it's easier to integrate it into
that's one thing I like about Dzogchen and its sister practice Mahamudra, these like direct access or naked awareness practices of Tibetan Buddhism, which has a lot of different practices and mantras and tantras and visualizations and sacred music and chanting, a lot of aspects. But in this, just the naked awareness part, since we're practicing with eyes open, and it's very integratable into daily life. So then, you can do that anytime. And not just you, but all of us together who are in this conversation, listening or thinking about it or listening later. If you just take a break and like raise your gaze and say, like you have a instant American 5-second Dzogchen meditation. It's like, a lot of things get dispersed or, lightened. And if we could punctuate the solidity of a claustrophobic day with these like instant quickies, natural meditations, it really, you start to see through things better. Like the solidity, the tin foil has a lot of punctures in it. It's more like a screen in a window, the way you can actually see through it rather than a concrete sky looming in on you. And how am I ever going to get out of this rut, this job, this path, this family, this health situation? But you see, more the sky is still there and nothing has changed, and the weather comes and goes, and everything changes eventually, and you have a breath of fresh air, which changes everything. Sometimes I just go outside and do that just for a change, because I love nature and outside and sports, and I'm a physical guy, and I love water. I'm always talking about the water element and co-meditating with water, lakes, and the sea, and waterfalls and streams. But just to go outside, even in the city, it's fantastic, and away from the world of words and thoughts and writing and speaking and teaching and translating study that I spend a lot of my time in, much as I love my work and that kind of work. But just to go outside and say, oh, what a miracle, like the freshness of spring or the sharp clarity of winter, and the snow and the cold, or the gorgeous brocade of autumn leaves here in the Northeast. I don't know. You probably don't have any seasons in Hawaii except the beautiful.
Look wet and dry. It gets cold here where I am.
But just going outside and connecting to the whole, even physically, viscerally, is like a Dzogchen meditation, natural meditation, with your eyes open. So we can really carry it on anywhere, and it doesn't have to be for long hours. You were saying something about hours of practice and how to integrate it into daily life, and I think that's very important.
So you're grazing instead of waiting to have like a big meal,
right?
To just
Well, grazing is a funny term, yeah. Snacking. In Tibetan, there's actually a saying, "Yang Tung Drangmang," and our teachers always used to say it. It means many quickies rather than few longies.
Right.
So this is how we bring it into daily life. We have our intense or contemplative practice period, not just on Sunday or Saturday, but maybe every morning or sometime in the day or a couple times a day, depending on you and your lifestyle and time. But then also integrating with daily life, that's really, really important. And so doing it for 5 seconds while waiting for the light to change or the elevator, or while you're at a meeting and losing, starting to get bored or lose your temper, you can always refresh yourself by taking a deep breath and even saying to yourself, or look at the sky, or look up and sideways with your eyes. These are all Dzogchen quickie practices. Break up your heavy thoughts or boredom with the right to left gaze taught by the 5th Dalai Lama, and then up and down, and just do like once or twice or 3 times, and this kind of thing. And then you connect like a natural freshness to like a present awareness.
That must have been nice when you were taking your 3-year silent meditations, just to have all of those physical plane things kind of taken care of, and you could really go deep.
Yeah, it was fantastic, and it was a great opportunity to do the 3-month, 3-day traditional Tibetan meditation retreat. And of course, with that comes, a lot of other things, not just like all your needs are taken care of, but you're also living like a monk or a nun in a cell, and, with an all-day schedule of meditation and chanting and prayer and yoga and meditation and chanting and prayer and yoga, and 4 or 5 hours of sleep and meditate. Did I mention yet meditation and chanting and prayer and yoga?
Right.
And no weekends, no holidays. There were Tibetan holidays like Tibetan New Year. But
right, I guess
like an all-day puja. It was an all-day chant and ritual, and feast. Ritual feast.
Right. Well, I think I bring that up because I know sometimes one thinks you're like, oh, if only I could just like catch a break and just be able to go so deep into this, it would be easier, but it's got its own.
It's true, but you have to be authentic to yourself, like I did that when I was in my 20s and 30s. So if you have children, if you have, a career, if you're taking care of sick parents or elders, you can't just go away and be a monk or a nun for 3.5 years. But you can go to a retreat where you can listen to a podcast, you can do your prayer, your contemplative practices, your yoga, your meditation, your prayer, your chanting, kirtan every day, wherever you are. Yeah. You can listen to the teachers, and you can watch them on YouTube, and you can listen on podcasts and in many other ways, and always stay in touch. And you can be with your spiritual friends doing that, like you were, driving to Ram Dass's house with some bhakti chanting on perhaps Krishna Das's kirtan wala, beautiful.
It was actually Nina
on the
but
radio. Okay. Nina Rao.
Yeah. Yes.
And even in the car.
Yeah. Oh, that's my chanting mobile.
That's the modern, Me too. I still have a lot of CDs in the car because it's easy to play them in the car. I don't really have them at home because at home it's easy to get it, just they're not streaming in other ways.
Funny enough, the only CD in my car is your Dream Yoga CD.
Well, I told you, Fred Flintstone. I'm glad you're still,
Well, you have to have
Dad.
one just at least in case Bluetooth doesn't work. And
yeah, I know.
That's funny.
There's high tech and then there's heart tech, and it's good. The heart tech always works. That grid never goes down. You can always tune into Maharaji vision or Buddha vision. That's the heart tech. And the head's like I think Ram Dass probably said this because he said he said everything. He's like our Shakespeare of spiritual sayings.
Oh goodness, yes.
Of course, Shakespeare also was not afraid to borrow, as we say, from the past. Even plagiarized the great Shakespeare. So Ram Dass said something like, "The head is like the office, and the heart is like home." So you want to make sure that you don't spend all your time in the office. Nobody ever on their deathbed says, "I wish I spent more time at the office." So heart tech is very important. And even though there's always new things to get, and now somebody's trying to tell me to get Alexa with a Google Home thing, so I can, because I'm always asking questions, I can just ask the questions like aloud into the air and get an answer without typoing it with my fingers on the little keyboard on my iPhone. They think it's made for me because I'm the question man. I'm not joking. I asked Google Home the other day because somebody said, "Come on, try Google Home." So I said, "Do you love me?" And this damn machine came up with a pretty good answer. It said something like, yes, in a service oriented way, yes.
Oh.
It was like, holy moly! AI is getting more involved than we are.
You're like, I understand service. Yeah, okay, I accept that.
Yeah, in a service way, not emotionally, sexually.
Well, at least it was being authentic too. So you're like, okay,
fantastic. Yeah. Oh, and then so the other wise guy that I was with said, "Hey Google," or "Okay." I think you say, "Hey Alexa," but you say, "Okay Google."
Okay.
With this thing, he said, "Okay Google, what is the meaning of life?" I'm leaving a pause here on purpose so everybody's listening can think about this. Now, how is this Alexa or Google Siri-like thing going to answer this? What is the meaning of life? And it's probably going to say, I don't qualify to answer that. That's not a question I can answer. So the damn thing came back with a number. Of course, I have no memory, but it came back with a number. I'm going to make up the number, like 422, which was the number of the meaning of life in the famous cult classic book, A Hitchhiker's Guide to the
Oh, it's 42.
Yeah, 42.
Or yeah.
Yeah, it's a kind of science fiction spoofy, but it like looked into the Wikipedia of its mind and it came up with the answer to what is the meaning of life according to a literary source, 42. I thought that was fantastic. Most of us that were sitting there didn't remember that. So it actually answered our question in like a funny way. So heart tech is always there, and we can ask, and we can look inside, whether you call it praying or self-inquiry or ask the Lama or ask the teacher or ask your trusted friend or sister, for help or for knowledge, or what do you do when you're so down that you can't even pray, or you don't even believe in what you usually believe in? What do? And you can get some really good help that way. So I'm all for asking, which was the beginning of this little tirade. I think if we can lower our head and ask, didn't Ram Dass say, "Ask and you shall receive"?
Sure.
Knock and it will be open to you. Or maybe that was in the Bible. Yeah. So I encourage that. And that's why I had the nickname from my Tibetan guru, the great Kala Rinpoche, late Kala Rinpoche, the question man. So I used to ask questions all the time. And once I asked him if that was okay, and he said, wasting your time, and you have so many disciples and refugee camps, responsibilities here. And he said, ask all your questions, then one day you will know. He didn't say you will know like me, but that's what he was implying. Like, ask all your questions. You're the seeker. Keep seeking and questioning and investigating, and one day you will know. You will find out. And I'm just passing that on to you. You're a little younger than me, and to everyone that's listening. Don't settle for simple answers. Ask all your questions. And it doesn't just have to be analytical or intellectual either. There are ways of asking: intuition, the heart, feeling, body knowledge, getting your hands and feet dirty in the earth, kind of questioning, by doing things like that, or the arts, being creative, questioning the muse, shaking the muse up.
Yeah, I guess that is, I think one of the things I wanted to talk about is like after the mindfulness or that kind of thinking, it's some sort of state. It's actually, being creative or mindful through,
it's a tool.
It's a tool.
It's a tool. It's not an end in itself. It's like mental floss, Dental floss is healthy, but it's so you can use your teeth, not
right.
as an end in itself. And so mindfulness, like mental floss, makes you healthier, but then, what do you do with it? Like sharpening the tool or sharpening the saw, as some leadership people call it. I think from Stephen Covey, sharpen the saw every day, like use your skills and improve yourself a little, learn something. And mindfulness, as we use it today in North America, has become a little bit utilitarian in my view. And it could go a little deeper, like all the way to loving awareness, cosmic awareness, oneness, awareness of oneness, having a mind full of love and connection and wisdom, not just concentrated, not just being muscle bound like people who lift weights over much, but really being a healthy all around athlete or healthy mensch, well-rounded in your life with yourself and others. A Dzogchen is a very subtle, advanced kind of way of mindfulness. We said there's different 6 kinds of mindfulness according to Dzogchen, and not just concentrating on what you're doing while you're doing it, which is general mindfulness, like chewing a raisin 100 times is general mindfulness, being very attentive to that one thing. Or breath watching meditation, mindfulness of breathing and getting more concentrated. But we could also consider like what brings wisdom, like panoramic awareness, openness, and acceptance that can open your mind, mindfulness. And the great perfection kind of mindfulness, Dharmakaya mindfulness, Nyosho Kempo used to call it. Ramdas's Dzogchen teacher, Nyosho Kempo. In fact, I think I saw his face in the new Ramdas movie on Netflix. They showed Ramdas's altar, and there was Nyosho Kempo. Made me happy. And I hope everybody is watching somehow, however you get media today. I happened to see it on Netflix, the new Ramdas movie called Walking Home.
Going Home. Yeah, it's only available on Netflix at the moment.
Yeah, so it will be around more. And it's very up to date. It's not just all about his life in the 60s, 70s, 50s, and 80s. It's very poetic and contemplative and up to date, like an encounter with Ramdas and Maharaji in the spirit and in nature and reality, in the spirit now.
Yeah, I think it does a good job of letting you actually feel what it's like. Because since his stroke, and it's definitely, he's now so much more in his body, and that feeling is, that movie does it for you. You don't have to go to it. You got to go to his house, in that way. And
and his pool and his water view and his sky view and his sky-like mind and his loving awareness and warm welcomingness and Maharaji's big tent kind of blanket.
Yeah, I just think for all he must have traveled, for all the amount that he moved around and talked and talked and talked, it's just nice that he's like, at least he can just take a break there, and that's a nice view.
I think that that film marks a new step in the evolution of the Ram Dass saga, because Ram Dass was one of the most articulate people on the planet, not just as a professor and a teacher and a public speaker, but as a thinker and like a guru, a mentor, and he could really, like the antenna of the race, and he could really articulate things that a lot of us hadn't experienced, or point out the way where we hadn't seen yet. And after his stroke, he has aphasia, and it's a little harder to speak, but he's still expressing and embodying, exuding that. So I think this was a very interesting, almost like noble silence movie. Not that it was silent, but there was a lot of flowing water and sky and nature, and him and the family bouncing in the pool or the hot tub, and being with Ram Dass in a more spacious way, not just the words and the talk that we're so familiar with. Like you said, your friends, when you were driving to his house, you had some Nina Rao's kirtan, chanting divine hymns on the player in the car, the music player, whatever kind it is. So you weren't talking. And in a way, that's what I mean by this marks the new evolution of Ram Dass's saga, who's the author of so many books and talks and words. But this was almost like a inside job. This is almost like an inside job in the sacred space of his guru vision, or his heart tech, not his brilliant mind, because he is some kind of genius, but his brilliant, beautiful, loving, spacious, warm, welcoming heart, which is Maharaji's heart.
You said the term inside job, which is something I say when I describe my job and why it's so important to me to produce these kinds of podcasts and, to do the free courses via ramdass.org, and really trying to make all of this as accessible as possible. And sometimes you got to pay for stuff, but otherwise it's a huge mission to make sure that all of this information as words are available. But because I feel like we are all tasked with now working on, it's an inside job in terms of making the world better. And so having these tools available, or even just listening to a talk that, asks those questions that you start asking your own questions, or even getting to the point that you can handle being quiet in your heart by yourself, even for a minute.
Yeah. That would be awesome for any of us, not just, many city dwellers, which is not us. Awesome for anyone.
Right. So
and there's so little interiority today. It's silence anywhere except in deep nature. People are forgetting the value of that. I mean, the children are growing up without that, just being stimulated every second.
So I find that, that's part of why I love my job, is those tools, because I've used them. And I started doing yoga when I was 18. So many, many years ago. Not many, but
not that many.
All right, 15. But anyway, 15. And chanting and the bhakti yoga has been the only form that has been able to quiet my mind somewhat, that my heart gets to hang out, and that gets at least to come forward a lot more. And there's definitely a lot more comfortable silence, so that's why I love this stuff.
Well, we all love this stuff because it's such a relief, and it comes in different ways or forms to each of us, but it's just such a relief. It's so beautiful. It's a miracle of love, as Maharaji called it. I was thinking about how much I love chanting, and quiets my New York motor mind and motor mouth too. And devotion really does open your heart and your finer or your positive, beautiful emotions, not just difficult, challenging, conflicting emotions, and gets one out of the head and out of the office. So I'm going to give another vote for your heart tech job, and how you, Kelly Rego, have integrated that into your path as your true vocation. It's beautiful and good for all of us. So thank you. And of course, we all know who listen to these podcasts that there are many podcasts on the Be Here Now network. And you, Kelly, and others are producing, and you can all find them. And even though some things seem to cost money on all of these offerings, nobody's complaining about it being a commercial venture, because most of them are free or low cost, or nobody's kept out if they can't afford to pay. And that's always been Ram Dass and Maharaji's way. I mean, Maharaji never charged for anything. He never accumulated anything either. He was really an example of non-attachment and generosity. Feed him and love him. That was one of his famous mottos.
Feeding everyone. It struck me the other night, Ram Dass at the end, he said that we were making mala bracelets. We were making these bracelets. We were attaching some of Maharaji's blanket to this mala. And he said just the whole night of us doing piecework and chanting at the same time, it was a quiet affair, we really weren't chit-chatting. And he just said that it fed his heart, and it clicked in that moment. I was like, oh, that's the feed everyone. It's not just like actual food. It's like, oh, like you feed everyone that way too. And I was like, oh, so you never know when there's going to be a whole new layer to. Right. That's why I like Maharaji's teachings. They're so they're simple but not easy, and
no, it's very profound, and there's so many layers.
So I was happy to find another layer.
So even you're such a high tech and fast new media person. You got a lot out of this handicraft and this service of tying the wrist malas for the next retreat.
That's a big part of my own.
A few hundred people coming next week.
Yes, but I would say crafts are a big part of my practice. I like to, if I have to listen to a Dharma talk, I'm usually coloring or like cross stitching mandalas, and I just found that I needed that. That is another grounding practice, and it's fun to have something to show for it on the end of the day. Actually, I have one right here. I can show you.
Yeah, show us. What did you? Oh, that's beautiful.
So I'm in the middle of cross stitching. It's a mandala, and so it's just like basically coloring with thread.
Rabbi Zalman Schachter's yarmulkes used to look like that.
It looks a little funny because of the hoop, but these are part of the things, because I have such a screen internet focused job that I make sure to do non-screen based activities, or like I do puzzles a lot.
I'm trying to do some gardening and things that I never really used to do. It's good to be grounded and kneel down in the earth and under the sun, and be like a little more animalistic or just ordinary, like, and feel the earth and the chlorophyll and the green thing, nature growing up through me too, not just being in my head thinking about sculpting bridges to nirvana or something. Towers of Babel to heaven. Well, Sylvia Borstein, the long time mindfulness teacher from Spirit Rock, she's always knitting. Of course, she's the Jewish grandmother bodhisattva, so she has plenty of grandkids. She's also a PhD psychologist, so she's no slouch up here in mental department. And she's wonderful and wise and loving. But she's always knitting at our meetings and our teacher meetings and our gatherings. She's always knitting, and she's always knitting something, quote, for the grandchildren, who was sort of like anybody younger than her, not just 3 or 4 grandchildren. So it's a great mindfulness practice. She'd be the first to say. Knitting, cross stitching, and darning, anything that takes you could do like one by one by one by one, and repetitive and simple and focused on, and staying with it. It's great mindfulness, natural, healthy grounding and mindfulness practice. So very recommendable. I'm glad you found that for yourself.
Yeah, one time I was listening to a Ram Dass talk, and he was talking about rounds of mala, and I don't necessarily use mala beads that frequently in my practice. And I was like, oh no, I don't have mala beads. Oh gosh, I haven't done that. And then I looked at my fat stack of colored mandalas, and I was like, oh, those are my beads. Like those. So you gotta have the playfulness and know yourself enough to know where to apply these practices and how you can kind of integrate it.
Yes, and everybody's really an artist, in one way or another, at the art of living. It doesn't have to be a physical craft or a recognized fine art. Everybody's creating their life and themselves every day.
Well, I think as we're trying to balance out the energies of the world, receiving is something that I notice a lot of us aren't so good at. So when you're sitting down to be creative and like pick the next color of marker for what you're going to choose, have to sometimes just listen. You're like, no, it needs to be this purple. This is the purple. Or just even sit down to be able to listen, just to listen to yourself and listen to your heart. And it's easier when your hands are moving. So, yeah.
So, as you probably know, I write poetry all the time, but I'm not trying to publish it or anything. I just write for myself in my notebook. And I'm also haiku a lot. And I can't draw, and I'm not that good with the crafts, but I feel like writing, not for deadlines or for my, nonfiction books and things, but just communing with the muses has for many decades been an important part of my spiritual practice. And I'm mentioning that for anybody who's listening who thinks that it's something separate, that's not,
Oh yeah, just
practice.
anyway.
Sacred arts or all the arts, however you find it.
Yeah.
It's
Cooking.
Fine art. Yeah, exactly.
Anything. Just a chance that you can
love and
receive.
care.
Mm-hmm.
And if you do it, in relation to or for other people, not just for yourself or for fame or success, it's really just a spiritual practice, just getting out of the way and letting it come through. I'm often surprised at the things that I find written in my poetry notebooks, like, who wrote that? It's pretty awesome. So if you get out of the way, your creative genie, your muse can come through. That's something I find very beautiful about the spiritual life, that it's so accommodating. It has so many aspects or facets, like a rich jewel, including relationship.
Oh yeah.
Relationships and just so many things. So I see we've been talking for an hour on this podcast, pretty much.
Yeah.
Do you have any other things you want to talk about or questions that have come to you as you're kind of the nexus of the entire network?
No, but I think I would like to end with like maybe a mini meditation, perhaps.
Okay. So do you want to lead it?
Oh no, we don't.
You're hoping that I would.
No, you.
Okay. Kick it. Okay, everybody, buckle up. Remember we talked before about many quickies rather than few longies, and bring it any time in your day, like with an or just go outside and look at the sky or something. So I'm going to kind of introduce that and then leave some silence. And I'm going to begin with a little Tibetan chant and invocation and ring the gong, so we get our other senses involved. And the sound, just hear the sound. You don't have to think about what it means or anything, and just follow the sound and go where it goes. Go where it goes, and let go of everything else and let it come and go. And we'll just have a few moments we'll share a few moments of contemplative sweetness. And again, bowing to the divine, to the light, to the Buddha, to the God or Goddess in your seat. Don't overlook her. Janju Samchok Rinpoche, Makye Panang Gyoche, Gepa Nyampa Mepaya, Kane Kandu Bawa Shau. May the lamp of enlightenment be lit, may it be fanned into flame, may it illumine and relieve the entire universe. Join with me with a big inhalation and then exhaling with a big reliefful. Come on, class, I don't hear you. Inhaling deeply. Get the idea?
Mm-hmm.
Just do this anytime. Of course, you can do it silently too if there are other people around, but just once more imagine outside or looking up at the sky or just opening everything all of a sudden, inhaling deeply and a big relief, cosmic relief full. May the force be with you. How sweet it is. Noble silence, just being as is natural meditation. Just sitting, just breathing, just being as is, as it is. Natural, great perfection, as it is, right now. May all beings everywhere with whom we are inseparably interconnected and who want and need, same as we do, may all be awakened, liberated, healed, fulfilled, and free. May there be peace and harmony in this world. And may we all together complete the spiritual journey. Imaho.
Imaho.
Miraculous. Wondrous. Yes. Thank you.
तेरे